Right, so even with the recent release of Murder Drones on Amazon Prime, the same 8 episodes we've come to know so well can get a little stale after a while. So, in the same vein as my School Bus Graveyard video from last fortnight, this video is going to attempt to expand your horizons to find something new to get excited about. It's time to take a look at some Murder Drones fan animations. Now, most of these series are in early productions, with the vast majority of them only having a trailer out at the moment, so I will instead be rating them based on their individual premise and the quality of animation that has been shown. Also, a quick side note, because a lot of people will bring it up in the comments section if I don't talk about this. Intermission and Mechanical Instinct have been excluded from this video because I've already covered them in other videos. Let's get into it. First up, we have Murder Drones Insecurity by System Lock Studios, formerly known as Animator Thing. The series thus far features 3 trailers, an original song, and the first episode is expected to release sometime this year. The story turns the show into a more traditional slasher horror style, with the undermanned and outgunned WDF fighting against the murder drones who have come to eradicate the colony. Unlike in the canon show, the WDF is somewhat competent here, partly due to their leader being this figure who has no name instead of Khan. The murder drones are also portrayed as a much deadlier force than in all episodes bar the pilot. They are pretty much constantly in kill mode, but still retain the ability to toy with their prey. Jay hasn't been sighted yet, but N and V both appear equally terrifying. Speaking of not appearing, Uzi doesn't appear to take any part in this show whatsoever, which is more typical of a slasher story where anyone and everyone is able to die at a moment's notice and there can't be any plot armor for the protagonists. In essence, this show is based off of Uzi's original monologue in the pilot and nothing more, which could be a good thing or a bad thing depending on who you ask. The real seller for this series though is the animation quality. System Lock has come out to say that they will be remaking the trailer at some point, but what we already have is still a very high level of animation. Everything bar the old 6-cylinder that this guy pulls out looks really good, feels very natural, and the editing effects are spot on. The animation is very smooth, especially for 3D, and while the setting could use a little bit more detail and variety, it's still very solid, which makes the show a prime contender for the best out there. Next up, we're switching animation styles to Moro's Murder Drones vs Helluva Boss animation. This is a standalone episode and as such won't be getting any new additions, but I thought I'd talk about it anyway because it is so popular. Also, I may or may not be using this as a way to test the waters before making an Indie Cross video. The big bonus this video has over everything else we're talking about today is the amount of content available. This video is a full 10 minutes, which is a lot in the context of everything here right now. The character voice acting is also surprisingly accurate, and the mannerisms of the characters are very consistent with their canon selves. I especially like the apologies from N and Moxie while they're in the middle of kicking the hell out of each other. This production also wins a few points in the uniqueness department due to the direction it took the writing in. Instead of being dark and gritty like almost everything else on this list, Moro has blended the Murder Drones writing with Helluva Boss writing to create something that is actually quite funny. The visual gags are great, and once again solid voice acting sells the standard jokes as well. Honestly, Spindlehorse should take some notes here on how to make an entertaining script with these characters that doesn't devolve into an amount of sex jokes that would put Rebecca Yarros on the back foot. The animation itself is pretty good. I do like the way they've transferred the 3D designs of the Murder Drones into 2D, but there are a fair few clipping issues and some of the movements appear a little bit jagged. The biggest issue for me, at least as a die-hard lore nerd, is the fact that all of the lore here is very inaccurate to the show. The fault of that is due to the unflinching nature of time, but I'm still going to complain that they got the villain wrong and the bunker entrance wrong and the lack of the sentinels that would definitely fuck these guys up. Not to mention that any one of these 3 canonically solos the entire Helluva Boss crew, and it's not even close. Now back to solely Murder Drones projects with Xander Russell's Strays. Instead of following the worker drones, this comic features a set of murder drones who have ended up, well, not where they're supposed to be. There haven't yet been any previews for the animation of this particular show, at least that I'm able to find, but there are several teasers at the moment. Most of these are voice lines from the cast or single audio files with video representation of the file, which means, yes, there is plenty of lore to be figured out here. I'm not going to spoil it for you, partially because I want you to check out the project for yourself, and partially because I haven't figured it out. I can't really comment on the art style here because, well, there isn't one yet, but the voice work is very solid and the characters are recognizable solely off the voices, which is a very good start. Xander does also have another project up on his channel at the moment called End of the Line, which focuses on a post-episode 8 world. Absolutely fed up with the solver being stuck to her at all hours of the day, Uzi is going to attempt to go to any means necessary to extract the exponential end and flush it down the toilet like your little brother's fish 3 days after he bought it. There is less for me to go off with this one, and the animation appears to be in a more hastily drawn animatic style than everything else, but it may still be entertaining for you if you enjoy a more lighthearted story. But should you cringe after so much as hearing the words lighthearted, Murder Drones Flesh and Bone may be the story for you. This story focuses much more on the harsh reality of the Copper 9 wasteland, with a single drone who is totally a worker, not clickbait. He lives off the land and does his best not to be eaten by the murder drones or discovered by the workers while snooping around. The creator of this series, Samuel Pastel, has a background in Friday Night Funkin' mods, so it's no surprise to see some of that style has transferred over to this series, with stocky characters that have an even more ridiculous head-to-body ratio than in the canon. The animation isn't the smoothest thing on planet Earth, but it's far from unwatchable, and the fight movements in particular look very nice. Now, something that I have noticed over the last few days since the announcement of more Murder Drones merch, see my recent short for my opinion on that, is that plenty of people out there are begging for more doll representation. So to cater to you guys specifically, the next two animations are centered around our favourite Russian. Doll's Revenge by Ent-T, I think that's how you pronounce that, continues with a similar trend across fan projects by resuming the show after episode 8. However, in this timeline, Doll is not completely destroyed by Sin before the final battle. Her spirit, ghost, soul, whatever, lives on and ends up possessing Jay when she returns to the Corpse Spire. Now with a new body capable of mass destruction and access to the abilities of the Solver, Doll makes it her mission to eradicate Sin, going through Uzi and N to do so. The project itself is made up of 4 animatic segments with more on their way. The animation is somewhat rudimentary, the character proportions don't always stay consistent, the lines are wonky, and the connections aren't clean most of the time. That being said, what it lacks in artistic flair, it makes up for in choreography. If you allow yourself to imagine the movement more than actually watching them on the screen, the fight we see between Uzi and Joel is very well structured, has great pacing, and a nice use of the environments. Doll's Revenge definitely isn't for everyone, but for those with a good imagination, it is worth a watch. Next up is the very imaginatively named Doll by Rayframe Media. This is a new channel at the moment with only 2 videos uploaded, one of which is the trailer for this animation. We don't get a whole lot of info regarding what exactly is going to be going on within the show itself, but I'll tell you what I can gather. Doll is going to be largely based off the events of the canon. However, instead of working from Uzi's perspective, it will obviously be from, say it with me now, Lizzie's. That was a really bad joke, but Rayframe claims that he'll be presenting Doll in a new light with this project, which will be interesting to see given we're only able to infer a lot of things about her past in the canon. The main draw of this show, however, is the animation. Much like Insecurity, this project is a 3D production, and while it doesn't quite stand up to animated things' quality as of yet, it is still very smooth and nice to look at. The proportions for the characters are slightly off from Glitch's models, but that's just me being nitpicky. And finally, I know this isn't an animation, so it technically doesn't fit the criteria of this video, but I wanted to talk about it anyway, so fuck you. Murder Drones Retribution is a full-on fan-made game that is currently in development. Not one of those basic games that have very little comments and terrible mechanics, no, this actually looks well put together. The movement looks pretty clean, you'll be able to play as multiple characters across multiple different levels, and it looks like they're even putting their own story in. Whenever we get a demo of this game, I will be straight on to playing it. Now, with the fanboying out of the way, let's get to the conclusion of all this. Overall, any one of these productions could be your cup of tea. None of them are inherently bad, and a couple of them could rival the canon show itself. Personally, I'm going to say that Insecurity is the project that I'm most looking forward to, but that's mostly down to the sheer production value of that project. Some people, including a rather auspicious waterfowl I happen to know, may suggest that I've made this video too early to get a proper look at the shows, but the main purpose of this is to give you Murder Drones fans something else to look forward to over the coming years. Perhaps I'll make an update video in about a year to see how these projects are going, but you'll have to hold me to that. Well, that's all I've got for today. Thank you all for watching, and have a good one.